And here we are back again, everybody, after that technical hitch. Hopefully it didn't spoil your lunchtime, early morning. We've got Sean Savage eventually on the line, stream, feed. Hi, Sean. How's things?
Not too bad, Justin. How are you?
Good. You're in your clinic in Belfast this afternoon, Sean?
I'm working away. Yep. So
Working
busy as ever. Usual stuff.
Busy as ever, usual old stuff. And what was being the usual old stuff today, Sean?
What have I had today? I did a few nail surgeries yesterday, so I had a few redresses to do this morning. Had a couple of scans. I had a steroid injection, first MTP steroid injection, and I had a couple of orthotic issues and a couple of casts for some orthotics.
Okay.
So yeah.
So pretty varied.
What's up? Yeah, very varied.
So pretty.
Yeah.
And when you say scans, what sort of scans are you talking about, Sean?
What did I have today? I had a lady was referred with. She was diagnosed with a supposed plantar fasciopathy, but it actually was a tib post tendinopathy. She had like an insertion tib post tendinopathy, and I had a. What else had I got? As I said,
you can see this image on you on the shared screen, can you?
I can, yeah.
Cool. So this is you in action, and unfortunately, you're in action on my leg because I tore my gastrocs muscle. So here we go. So do you want to talk us through this, Sean? Then.
Okay. So what we can see here, this sort of black line is a hypoechoic mass, which is basically a sort of a tear within the medial gastrocnemius. So when you have a lot of fluid, pardon?
It's a big gap. It shouldn't be there.
So basically, when you ultrasound basically sends sound waves in. So when it hits something hard like bone, it reflects back as very bright, translucent.
Yes.
Tendons tend to be like these sort of linear type patterns. Okay. So if there's fluid within the actual tendon, obviously that can't be reflected back, so it comes back as a hypoechoic mass, which is this long black sort of line. Just above that, you'll see sort of higher sort of white translucency. That could be like a hematoma. That could be like a bleeding within the actual tendon. Probably is. So the likes of that, probably lots of ice. In occasion, some of the consultants maybe actually might stick a needle in it and take that fluid out, take that blood out.
Well, they're not doing that to me.
We're not going to do that today.
I was in the sea this morning. I went into the sea for about 15-20 minutes. Felt fantastic afterwards. Where it made a big difference to it. So,
I mean, we have one of the cryo pools here that I think you saw. So it's basically one of these baths that we put some eutectic sort of salt in it, and it takes it just above freezing point, but it maintains and it's still liquid. So the idea is to get someone in that for about 8 to 10 minutes. It's absolutely horrendous. What's that?
Is it quite dense?
It looks very appetizing because there's nice bubbles and things, but it's bloody freezing. So you sort of immerse your foot or your leg into that up till about as hard as you can. For the first minute, it's absolute agony. Then you sort of become numb to it, and then after the last couple of minutes, it's really sore again. But the sort of whole idea of that is reduce inflammation, stimulate sort of lymph drainage, also stimulates sort of blood to the area. So there is some research that does work. I know Chris Blakely from University of Ulster has done quite a bit of research and has sort of also got some things printed in the British Medical Journal, Sports Medicine Journal, to show that cryotherapy is very good and it does help. But again, it's an adjunct. It's not a first. It's to help. We use it for a lot of recovery for patients. A lot of footballers. We had a load of ladies Gaelic team in last night using it just as a recovery after hard nights training. So it does help with that sort of whole DOMS, delayed onset muscle syndrome, pain and things like that. And it helps with very acute injuries. Well, one of the orthopedic surgeons would send patients over, and actually one of the orthopedic shoulder surgeons would send patients over post-operatively. And you can imagine poor person has to get submerged right into the actual ice bath to try and get some sort of work done on the shoulder. Yep, right down. The physio I work with, the physio I work with, Marty, would work a lot with MMA boxers and the fighters. So a lot of these guys who come in with neck injuries and they have to get right down and sit in it for 10 minutes. And I honestly do not know how they do it.
Really?
I would think there's probably bits of their genitalia and anatomy which are rather small after when they come out of that, I would say. Luckily enough, I've had no...
Of course, you could just use ordinary sort of ice in a bag and stick it all and a bit of thing.
Oh, absolutely.
Cryo stuff can be quite good.
Yep, absolutely. They're used quite a lot. I know in the Belfast Knee Clinic, with Richard Nicholas and Chris Conley, they would recommend the cryo cuffs, after ACL, any sort of knee surgery and stuff like that. And as a matter of fact, I think they rent them out or actually sell them now. But the ice bath they're expensive bits of kit. They're 15K. It'd be great if I know a lot of the Premiership football teams, the likes of Man City, Arsenal, they would use them regularly. So they are very good at recovery mode. But as I say, it's an adjunct to treatment. It just helps get rid of some swelling. You've got to do all your other rehab, your shock wave, whatever, your loading, whatever other mode of rehabilitation you want to do with that.
One of my physio colleagues, Paul Cheshire, who used to look after Dundalk when they had their for years, for about 10, 12 years, Paul, with Dundalk, he reckons I'm being quite optimistic at 4 to 6 weeks. He says 8 to 10 weeks if I'm lucky.
Yep. Well, actually, as I said the other day when I took a photograph of yours and I spoke to one of the consultants, orthopedic guys that I would sort of deal with, and he sort of thought 6 weeks was minimum. But he also thought you should have been in an aircast boot, which you haven't done. But I know
not really walking. It's I walked down to the water today and spent about 20 minutes in the water. I cooled it down. It was nice. Got nice sort of rubefacient effect in the lower legs, and it's it felt great afterwards. I had to do a little bit of walking, but I'm not doing much. I mean, it's all tappy. I'm holed up for the weekend. If anybody wants to come and visit, come and cook for me or something. No, I've got a couple of friends coming out. But I wanted to go sailing and everything. I mean, I just got a new cover for the boat. The varnish is nearly done. I mean, it's a cluster thing with Jake. Begins with F. One of those. I mean,
right.
It's. But I mean, it's great to have access to that type of scanning, because I think we mentioned on the call the other day, one of the leading sports surgery clinics in Dublin had a 4-week wait for an ultrasound scan.
Yeah.
It's completely crazy. I mean, I do know the radiographer, so I could have emailed him. And a couple of other places I could have got done Friday and Saturday, but I was able to pop up to you in Belfast. So how long have you been using ultrasounds for, Sean?
Well, I did the sports medicine qualification in London 3-4 years back, and we started to use it then. So I'd always sort of I'd always liked the idea of using ultrasound. I'd spent quite a bit of time with some of the orthopedics, and what I found out with a lot of the orthopods, they don't guess. So as podiatrists, I still think there's an element of guesswork in what we do. And if we're going to be considered medics, we got to get a proper diagnosis. So my sort of philosophy is, someone comes into you and it could be this, this, and this. You can do your clinical tests and things like that. You might be right, you might be wrong. Orthopods, it's either scanned, MR, X-ray. You get a diagnosis, you get the proper treatment plan, patient gets better. So I think in sports med, that's what you've got to do. So with ultrasound, it's changed my practice. I scan everyone. I'm getting better at it. I'm not expert in it, and absolutely, I'm still learning. I spent some time with some of the consultant radiologists in the Ulster Independent Clinic. Noel Napier, brilliant guy, very pro podiatry, took me on board. I sat in his foot and ankle clinic every Monday, like a student watching, and I learned so much. But one thing with your ultrasound, you've got to know your anatomy. You don't know your anatomy, you're just looking at clouds. I'm able to sort of,
it's just grey fuzz. Apart from the large black gap, you could hardly not recognize what that was. So as you say, when it's just getting familiar with the structures and
exactly. The one thing that's good with ultrasound, which is, you're scanning someone in real time. So if you're looking at medial ankle and you've got your Tom, Dick, and Harry, your tib post, your flexor lucis, your flexor digitorum, you can, if you're not sure which one it is, flex the big toe, you'll see it moving. So you know you're on flexor digitorum. You'll flex the little toes, you'll see flexor digitorum. Your flexor lucis, you'll see your flexor digitorum. You do your tib post test, you'll see tib post moving. You look lateral side, your peroneus brevis, your peroneus longus. Again, you plantar flex the first ray, you'll see the peroneus longus moving. So, you know, you can, there are little things you can do to help you along, but you do need a basic, well, you do need to know your anatomy. You don't know your anatomy, you're not going to have a chance. And it's, when you start to pick up little things, like I picked up a while ago, a little tear in peroneus brevis tendon. So, I mean, things like that. We saw a little bit of inflammation. We saw a painful os perineum syndrome, like a little accessory bone within the peroneus longus. You know, we're able to pick out the little ossicle. It's great for things like sinus tarsi. Great for things like sort of plantar fascial fibromas, those sorts of things, for measuring thickness of plantar fascia. So it's very, very good. Brilliant for tib post. You can track tib post right down to where it inserts into one of the insertion points in the navicular. You know, you can look at calves, you can look at TA. TA is great. So you can have
that insertion into the navicular is always quite a high area of stress, because you got like the spring ligament underneath it. And it's just getting and that's where it deflects. Round behind the ankle, underneath as well. So there's more high stress there.
Yeah, that's right. I saw a nice one a while ago, was one of these little accessory naviculars, os tibialis externum, one of the little accessory bones. So we were able to pick that up, really nice. So things like that, you're learning every day, and everyone's feet are different. So the more you scan, the better. And when we were taught,
can you see sesamoids? Sesamoids. You see sesamoids quite clearly? See sesamoids quite clearly, an image underneath them and stuff?
You can indeed. You can indeed. You can see your tibial, you can see your fibular sesamoid. You can see, we had a chap in, well, I didn't see this, but when I was over with Noel Napier, one of the radiologists, we had a chap in and he had an avascular necrosis of his tibial sesamoid, and he was able to pick that up very, very clearly on ultrasound. I've never seen one of those, but that was very interesting, seeing something like that. This guy had an underlying seronegative arthropathy. I think he'd psoriatic arthritis, and there's an association with sort of injury and AVN of the tibial sesamoid. So he was referred off to surgeon, and he had tibial sesamoid removed because it just obliterated. So yeah, there's things you can see, and as I say, you've got to keep looking at normal. If you know what normal is, you'll eventually find out. You'll know what an abnormal structure looks like. Okay, so what you're looking for is hypoechoic. You're looking for thickening of the tendon. You put your Doppler on, see if there's any neovascularization, any inflammatory changes, that sort of thing. So you can look clearly to see what's happening, and then it helps you with your diagnosis. It may not be completely 100%, but if you see pathology, you're in the right area.
You talked about the other day where a guy came in and he had been given a diagnosis by somebody else. He was told it was a neuroma, and you were able to scan him within 30 seconds, a minute, were able to tell him it wasn't a neuroma, it was an interdigital bursitis. Yeah, which is great, as you said, to give him a diagnosis that, well, if you come to see me and I'd been like, well, a couple of clinical tests and, well, maybe it's a bursitis, it's not a neuroma, he would have left a little bit confused. But pictures speak 1,000 words or whatever. So you can pop it up, because the classic. I was looking at some of the Celtic CRM. Well, let's talk about the scanner you use. Where's it from? Celtic CRM, is it?
Yes.
Well, I'm getting a scanner.
SMR, Celtic SMR.
So Steve is very kindly going to send us over the scanners on its way on the courier as we speak, and I'm going to be able to scan my own. So but I was looking at some of the resources that he has, because he had the scanners on a training course with, I can't remember which company, and they were doing something in London, a 2-day course. And when you pull up their neuroma scans, the pre-scans that they have, you do before you go to the course. Yeah, it's all that little mushroom. It's like a little Super Mario mushroom, what a neuroma looks like a lot of times in an ultrasound scan, doesn't it?
It does. It does. They can be sometimes very difficult to see, and sometimes the differential diagnosis between that and a bursa may not be so. It may not be so clear. But one thing that I do with a bursa, if you apply a bit of pressure, because a bursa is fluid filled, you can actually compress. So if it compresses, it's usually a bursa. If it doesn't, it's usually a neuroma, because the neuroma is more solid. Okay, so that's what you can do, sort of to identify it. But maybe just on that, I'm maybe just going to plug a few things. Myself, there's four sort of guys that are using ultrasound up north. So it's myself, Gareth McMullen, Claire Rooney, or Claire Dobby, and Suzanne Hamilton. And what we're hoping to do, because we've been doing a bit of CPD, we're hoping to do a bit of an ultrasound, introduction to ultrasound in podiatric terms. So we've got in touch with Steve. Steve's going to bring a few devices over. Machines. We're going to try and get maybe a select few, maybe about 20, 25 people. Everyone's going to get an opportunity to scan. Everyone's going to get an opportunity to be introduced to the machines. We're maybe going to do a little bit of theory and really just scan. You know, I might do medial ankle, Gareth will do lateral, Claire will do midfoot, Suzanne will do rear foot. And I just think it's an opportunity to learn, because, listen, ultrasound is now going to be taught on the undergrad of physiotherapy, and podiatrists are falling behind. And believe it or not, and the consultant radiologist Noel that I work has scared me and said, "Listen, guys, you're being left behind. Physio's going to take this over. We need to get out there. We need to be doing this. And this is our area. We're foot and ankle specialists. We need to be doing this."
Yeah. Do you think you're worried about it in the UK? When I first got back to Ireland in 2002, physios had all the biomechanics sold up already, because there was nobody doing, very, very few clinics doing any biomechanics here. And it was like, it was the physio realm, because everybody seemed to have come back from the UK and just done this for, and not treated any extended scope. And yes, of course, again, with physiotherapy in the UK, and of course there are more NHS positions for extended scope practitioners and sort of triaging and primary care and things. So, but yeah, and people are wondered where their scope of practice is going to go. You're going to lose it. You're going to lose it completely.
Absolutely. So we got to start doing these. We got to start doing these more areas of specialism. We got to, especially in areas like MSK sports. It's our area. We've got to start moving in. We've got to start taking control. We got to start making the contacts with the sports med docs, the orthopedics. We got to show that this is our area. We got to learn our anatomy. That's the main thing. A lot of pods don't know their anatomy, which is quite scary. So you got to get out there. You got to learn your stuff, and you got to get out there and bang on doors and get out there and show what you can do. And the only way you can do that is by continued education, is by learning and practicing these things and getting out there to do it. So I think it's exciting times for podiatry in certain areas. But again, if we don't have people leading that, we're going to lose it. We're going to lose it.
I mean, you got to go out and do it. I mean, that's what I found. It just doesn't happen. So as you say, you just contact people like yourself or I or wherever you are, or whoever, wherever you live or work, and you're interested in doing something that somebody else is doing. Just give them a call, contact them on social media. Go and shadow them for a day or two. Everybody's quite happy to share. Rising tide helps all the boats. You know what I mean? It's
exactly.
And
I mean, I don't know about you, but when I qualified, I'm going to just.
Oh, you can sort your Wi-Fi.
Have I lost myself now? Oh, there
no.
I'm upside down.
No idea.
Yeah, it's pretty horrendous. Sorry about that.
What?
Are we there?
Yeah, you're here. Just oh yeah, there you go. Is the Wi-Fi working better now?
Okay. Yes, it is. It is. When I qualified all those years ago, I was always very keen to learn. So I just emailed lots of pods in London and stuff, and just see if I could go over and spend some time with them. And I remember the only one who actually got back to me was Trevor Pryor. And I'd heard of Trevor, and I went out and spent a few days with him, and it was brilliant in London. And at that time he was working for West Ham, so when I went in, Joe Cole was in the clinic, and a few of these sort of big footballer names. So I was completely in awe. But what actually got me was Trevor wasn't doing anything different from what I was doing. He was doing exactly what I was doing, and I think it just that sort of gave me a bit of confidence. That knowing that I'm doing what some of the real top guys are doing. But it was just nice to sort of have that reinforced. And it was what also to see the sort of equipment and things these guys used and stuff as well. And a lot of it's bells and whistles, as you know. But, people like to see it. Patients like to see these things. Patients like to see the flashing lights and things like that. So it is nice. But so any new grads out there, as Justin says, go out there, get mentored, go out and spend time with people, email them, phone them, and Facebook them, and go over and spend some time. And it's amazing what you can learn. You learn so much. You think you know everything when you qualify. You know nothing. You will gain most of your experience and your knowledge postgraduately. That's the way it is. That's what I find anyway. And you're still learning.
Yeah, most definitely. It's you're just sort of starting. You're just sort of like starting off, really, and maybe there should be more of a sort of mentorship scheme, like sort of postgraduate after, like dentists and I think it's osteopaths or chiropractors do as well. You have to do a placement in a practice, which I suppose maybe is what the NHS was doing before. But we all know the changes that are sort of happening in there, and all sorts of health systems, and the not the taking over, but the rise of what the insurance companies are doing. And obviously, for any of our viewers in the States, it's sort of pretty pertinent at the moment, because the insurance costs are huge, and the rebates and stuff are getting smaller and smaller. So it is so we're practices at the moment transitioning out of network. We're a cash pay based system. So insurance is we've got a mouse in somewhere. The insurance. Can you stop moving your phone, Sean? What's that scratch? So the insurance is a huge thing. I mean, because the waiting list, especially now, a lot of health services. Hold on a second, Sean. Just add them back in again in a second, see whether that makes a difference. That makes a difference. Because, of course, a lot of the elective surgery now being cancelled, and a lot of appointments in the health service. So the waiting list, which was already large, is going to increase again and again. Again, fantastic opportunities if you're in private practice. But again, we've got a couple of practices in the UK. Absolutely. They're running newspaper and Google ads now, targeting patients who would have been on waiting lists. Again, another 6 months or a year wait for a problem. It's not the way to treat it. And I think the other night, as with musculoskeletal problems, they tend to get worse over time. So as with the guy who I ran through the assessment for the other night on the private Facebook group, there is, thankfully we only saw him after 6 months. What happens if you see him after a year or 18 months or 2 years? So problems, the longer somebody has the problem, the longer it's going to take to fix, or the worse it's going to be getting. Yes. Anytime I have a patient who did manage to get an appointment with the orthopedic outpatient department, I would tell them to crawl into the clinic. Tell them it's the worst pain you ever had. You can't sleep at night, because most people go in as normal, especially men, blokes, and go, it's not too bad. Where it's like, well, it's not too bad. I can't sleep. Haven't been able to do any sport. It's not. So yeah, I used to tell them to crawl in. Also, then there's a lot of people on waiting lists who don't want surgery. Why do you go and see an orthopedic surgeon who wants surgery? That was always my first question to them. Do you want surgery? Yes. Oh, well, why are you waiting for? Why have you been on a waiting list for a year if you don't want surgery? Because that's all you're going to get in a lot of places. Don't know that clicking and thing is. So So what do you see the future sort of bright?
Here. My phone's about to die.
Okay. So Sean is well prepared for this. I mean, he's obviously just not a professional like I am. And what the hell is that clicking and crackling? Like a packet. Going well, isn't it? Has he died? I don't know. Oh my God. It's nuts. Are you there? Hello?
I'm here.
He's not there. He's gone. His phone's obviously died. Oh my goodness. So, as it is, modern technology of Sean Savage. Hope he's got a better grasp on podiatry than he has on, devices. I have to stream. Here he comes.
I'm back again.
Whoa, I was just saying to everybody, hope you're a better podiatrist and ultrasound scanner than you are with modern technology, Sean. Otherwise, we're going to be in a bit of bother.
I just had to get my charger there. Sorry about that. Anyway, we're back.
Essential.
Back. Can't be perfect at everything, Justin.
Pardon me?
You can't be perfect at everything. You're there.
So
actually, just as you were saying there, but go ahead.
Well, just a lot of, as you say, imaging is huge in sports medicine. I mean, you can't really leave home without it. You've got to, as you say, you've got to give a diagnosis, especially once you move forward. And that's what I think is sometimes is lacking as well. Well, that was it. You touched on it earlier on. It's confidence. You didn't have the confidence. I wouldn't have had the confidence. I went and spent a couple of days with Trevor before. He spent a lot of time putting in-shoe F-scan things in patients. That was a whole load of balls. I borrowed one of those for a month or so. Hadn't a clue what was going on. Changed one thing, everything changed. It was, for research and shit, it's good. But that's it. It's just the confidence to have with the patient, to know and trust in your plan. And that's the thing I learned a lot from Ted in Australia and a couple of other clinicians. It's like, once you get the diagnosis, well, we know then what the system should be for, like, my calf tear. We got to rest it up in a boot for 2 weeks apparently, and then we got to sort of stretch it and start to rehab it and start to load it more. And there's going to be a progression on that. We know that what that's going to be. So we know that with a plantar fasciitis or a heel pain or a tib post dysfunction, we know it's going to be 6, 8, 12 weeks. You got to have the confidence. Pardon me? Yeah, I'll just keep talking, Sean. You got to have the confidence with the patient to stick to what your diagnosis and your treatment protocol and plan has been, and there's still no Sean. So that's what the confidence comes from. You could be very, very competent, but if you don't have the confidence, then it can be difficult. And then sometimes that can come across with the patient as well. That sometimes in the treatment, if they're not hitting the milestones that you've expected for them, they get a little bit worried and sometimes lose confidence in you. And then you can tell that you lose confidence in them. I think what we're going to have to do is wrap up for today, because Mr. Savage, let me just give him a ring and see whether, I don't know whether his phone's completely died or what. So back to telephone. So his phone must have completely died because he's not able to answer this. Okay, so you need to close down the whole screen. Close down the whole screen and remove yourself from the stream, and then reboot again, please. Yes, thanks. Anyway, he is a better podiatrist than he is with modern technology, apparently. Just got some water. So so on a private Facebook group the other evening, we went through what would have been a normal assessment, a musculoskeletal assessment for a patient, and what you would do in terms of clinically questioning on the background of the problem that they're presenting with, any sort of history that's relevant, and then manual and musculoskeletal tests, and then arrive at a diagnosis. And there's a process and a protocol to that, and that's what we're going to be going through over the next number of weeks in the private Facebook group, the fast track plan, the musculoskeletal. We're going to go through sort of assessments and then treatment, or diagnostics, and then treatment protocols. And let me just give Sean one more ring, and we will see. Oh, here he comes. Hold on. Right. Hello.
Back again.
Are we on a phone or a thing or a wind-up like toy thing? What are we on, Sean?
It's a tin of Coke with like a bit of string attached to it, and it's attached to your tin.
I can hear you.
Yeah, sorry about that.
I just give a quick sum up of the call the other evening we had, where I went through a clinical initial assessment. It was just the initial consultation and the diagnostic tests and things, and then giving the guy a diagnosis, or looking for further tests to do. So yeah, imaging is huge, especially like on field and access to imaging. And of course, all the teams that you would be working with, they'd be sort of have direct access to a lot of the sort of top imaging in the country. Well, if somebody's running around on a football pitch and they're worth a couple of million, you don't want to have to wait too long to get scanned, do you? And a lot of the, I'm sure a lot of the newer facilities that have been built, did Arsenal have their own MRI?
I'm sure they probably do. I'm sure they do.
You should contact Ron McCulloch. I think Ron McCulloch. Do you know Ron? Yeah, Ron's been looking after Arsenal for Jesus. Or I first went to see Ron back in 94, 95 when he was working in West London. He was looking after Arsenal then. So yeah, I'm still trying to get a hold of Rachel Ong. If you're there, Rachel, I have contacted the media department in Liverpool. We're in touch with, I can't remember whose name it is. They're going to have a look at it, and we're going to get you on, even with you having an undisclosed. And we won't be able to tell any of the stories that we'd love to, but we can talk about the life of a Premiership podiatrist. Rachel's been looking after Liverpool for 20 years. She's a bit shy. She doesn't want to come on and chat. So yeah, it's there's a lot of people working on high-end sport and podiatry, and then there's a lot of people sitting on forums complaining about something else, somebody down the street, taking away their business from them. So I don't really get that. How somebody like yourself or somebody like Suzanne working with football teams, European stuff, people working with high-end elite athletes with Ulster and Munster rugby teams. We're going to talk to Dave O'Sullivan in a couple of weeks. How can somebody be doing, seeing international athletes and triathletes and stuff? I was lucky to work with like people on the Olympic performance program through Tom Williams, one of the physios that I work with in London, and then somebody sitting down the street in a little clinic up the back of thing, worrying about doing this and why they don't have like a thriving practice. So what is it you think about podiatrists who, worried about? Does it just attract people who want to help people, but then who don't want to charge a fair sort of like fee for it? What do you think the mentality is?
I think the problem with what a lot of people do in private practice is that they just they're just working for themselves. They're just very isolated. I think if you're going to extend your practice, you want to make yourself better. Well, you got to go and do the qualifications. But secondly, you got to make contacts. So you got to get out there and show yourself to be a specialist in that area. So make contacts with physios, make contacts with docs, make contacts with the surgeons. You've got to get out there and basically sell yourself and show that this is what you can do. I mean, I work with the Northern Ireland, the soccer team, and I have been since Michael O'Neill took over about 8 years back. Now, how I got that was very, very. It was a pretty mad one. Michael O'Neill's son, his sister's child, came to see me with a calcaneal apophysitis. He'd been to see a few physios and stuff, and I sorted it out very quickly. I got a random phone call one Sunday morning from Michael O'Neill himself, and said, Sean, you helped Harry with his heel. I think we should have a podiatrist working in the Northern Ireland team. Would you come down? So I had to go down and give a little presentation. It was the physio, a lady Caroline Woods from Kildare, and there was Michael. There was the doctor David White. There was the sports massage. So I had to go in and basically sell podiatry to these guys and show that podiatry is an area that you guys need. Yeah, so I went in and did a 15-minute presentation. Afterwards, they were basically taking notes. And they said to me, right, okay, why have we not had a podiatrist involved with the team for all these years, you know? So they took me on board, and any foot and ankle injury, they ask me, they get my opinion, I bring the scanner down, we rehab players, we give them orthotics, we do the general podiatry, we do, you know, so it's great. And again, that was just a bit of luck, but also getting in there and selling yourself and showing that what we can do as a podiatrist, and we're needed. And I suppose a lot of these guys in the high end stuff of the Premier, they've done the same.
Yeah, it's to be that's what I said. We're all competent, but you need to have the confidence in it. You just need to have the balls to go and do it. I mean, you know, everybody's making it up initially when you turn up. You know, there's no blueprint to it. Well, we're going to do a blueprint. We're going to help too. That's over the next number of weeks. So that's where what the F is all this biomechanics stuff about is aimed at Lucy, who works in the UK, and she's nearly 3 years qualified, and is a little bit worried about how she can improve her musculoskeletal practice to help more patients. And that's what the talks on the private Facebook group and the support from there is going to help people to have the confidence to use the skills more. And then we're going to do higher end things, as you said, with the ultrasound, tacked on, and with other sort of courses for when people need to progress, when they're starting to work with, say, a county team, or when physios ask your name. I've talked to you before about this. First time is a couple of months qualified, in guy with knee pain came to see me, and there's Neve, the lovely physio next door. When I brought the patient in and told her he had a sore knee, she wanted to know what sort of tests I'd done. I don't know. She had a sore knee. He has a sore knee here, medial. I think it's on the meniscus. Any tests you've done? No. Any strength tests? No. And the clue. Never shown any of that. Physios are at a completely different level. Again, it's the training and the course, I think. Of course, I've been told that we have to meet minimum standards and there's a certain course, but we're not training people that are fit for practice things. I don't know. It sounds like there's a mouse or somebody's eating a bag of crisps or something right beside your phone, Sean. That's all clicking on. No?
No, not at all.
Okay.
We don't have anything there. It's fine. I think that's fine. That's a better way.
So, you would do a lot of Irish dancers as well. Dancers of sports medicine?
Yep, you see a lot of dancers. The bane of my life. 9 times out of you're going, Justin. Are you there?
Yeah. I'm here. I was just doing something. Why the bane of your life, Sean? Hold on, you're just cutting up again.
Lots of Irish dancers. You just wouldn't believe these kids are made of iron. The dancing they do, the training they do, they sustain. 12, 13 in there a while ago. You still there?
Yeah, just listening. Keep talking. Keep
and
talking.
She had a very severe.
We told you needed to talk less.
She had a very severe ankle injury, and she continued to dance. And any normal athlete would have been sitting at home resting, but she continued to dance and finished second in the World Championships. 6 weeks after a very, very severe lateral ankle sprain, an osteochondral lesion, a partial tear of her calcaneal fibular ligament, and she we strapped it. She danced and finished second. in World Championships. Unbelievable. You know the strength of just willpower to get through this. Amazing kids. I've had other ones dance with stress fractures. One wee chap whose stress fractures.
That's what we talked with Pat Ruddy about. I mean, how old was she? 12. Hello.
She was 13 or 14, something like that.
Right.
Yes.
Can you hear me? Is this clicking in and out, or is this good signal? Because it's shit from your end, Sean.
I can hear you fine.
Well, I can't. You're not even moving. Okay. So what we covered with Pat Ruddy was that girl, 12 or 13. She's an elite athlete. She's an elite athlete at that age. The amount of training that she's putting in, the amount of dedication and time and effort. I mean, and to be an elite athlete at 8, 10, 12 years of age is just phenomenal. I don't think there's any other sport in the world where you'll be dancing at that quite an elite level.
No, I agree with you.
Yeah. It's and the forces on the still. I mean, would you see any long-term damage from problems like with on the still developing sort of skeleton? You know, for that age, that amount of load and training.
Well, most of them dancing by the age of 18 or 19. Why? Because they're in severe pain. A lot of them end up with a lot of structural problems, a lot of toe injuries. I've got one little girl who was world champion. She's retired now. She's about 18, 19. Actually just starting university this year. She's having horrendous problems. Just knees now. She's getting low back problems. And it's probably all just the overuse and the stresses that she'd put on her body just throughout her years of Irish dancing, 15 years of constant repetitive stress. So it's going to have a big effect on these kids,
We've all worked with athletes at various levels, and nobody's ever right. Nobody's ever 100% right. Everybody's always carrying a little niggle or a little strain or a pull. And as you say, they just work on through it. Okay, right. I think what we're going to have to cut this off, Sean, because this is complete shit. Right? It's sorry, everybody. So we're going to when Sean gets proper Wi-Fi somewhere in Belfast sometime, we'll revisit. So thanks very much. We're going to be when the scanner comes next week. We're going to be having a live unboxing of the scanner. I'm going to be showing how to use it, switch it on, and stuff, and measure things. So thanks very much for everybody this afternoon, and we'll talk to you soon. And just give it a couple of seconds, Sean.